In this video, we're going to begin by looking at another very common use of the comma, and that's comma after introductory elements. So along with commas before conjunctions, when those conjunctions join two independent clauses, commas after introductory elements are probably the most common use, those two. And so an introductory element could be an introductory phrase, like a prepositional phrase. It could be an introductory clause, a subordinate or a dependent clause that begins a sentence, or just a transitional word or phrase. So the comma here is designed to show you where the introductory stuff stops and where the main or independent clause begins. So it helps you read it, lets you know, okay, we're done with intro, now the independent clause is beginning. So read this passage about the third wife, Jane Seymour, and see if you can find where we need to put in commas after introductory elements. Pause the video and do that, and then we'll come back and go through it. Okay, so beginning here, this is an introductory prepositional phrase. It's an after phrase, so we've got to set that off with a comma, and that's the main clause. And then we have another introductory prepositional phrase that gets set off with a comma there. And then we have an introductory clause right here, because it's more than a phrase, it's got a verb in it. And then another introductory phrase there, so that gets a comma after it. This is an introductory clause, right? An introductory subordinate clause, or a word group with a verb, but it's not independent, that comes before the true independent clause here. This is another introductory clause there, so this has both a transition, which already had a comma, and then an introductory clause, so that gets a comma. And then that gets a comma there too, that's introductory, and this is the main clause. All right, and I think that captures all of them there. Okay, so we've got all the introductory elements set off. This, by the way, is a picture of the son they had together. And, it says here, Jane Seymour was Henry's favorite wife. And when I went to Windsor Castle and went to the chapel there, I saw that he is buried with her. So he had 6 wives. He could have chosen 5, actually. His last wife was still alive, but he got buried with her. So I guess that shows that she really was his favorite. All right. Let's do another lesson here, and this is, now we're getting into some more of the, or some of the less common really uses of the comma, but things that do come up. And this is using commas to set off non-restrictive elements or non-essential elements. And a non-restrictive element or a non-essential element is just part of a sentence that's kind of an add-on, right? Often it's added on at the end after the independent clause. Or once in a while, it's kind of dropped in the middle of the independent clause, but it's an add-on or like an aside or a sidelight. And so you set that off to sort of show that that's something extra, right? You could take it out of the sentence. This is the test. You could take it out of the sentence, and the sentence that remained would mean the same. It would be complete. Its meaning would not be changed. So this is just an add-on, right? So this is a little more subtle rule here. So see if you can figure out where commas need to go to set off those non-restrictive elements, usually at the end of a sentence after the independent clause, or once in a while in the middle. All right, pause the video and go through that, and then we'll come back and take a look at it. Okay, so the first non-restrictive clause we need to set off is this, right? That's just a little add-on because we've got an independent clause here. Henry married Anne of Cleves. And this is just sort of an extra piece of information. If we deleted this part of the sentence, the first part would still be complete. It would mean the same thing. So that shows us that it is a non-restrictive or non-essential element. It needs to be set off with a comma. All right. And then after Holbein, same kind of thing there. This is the independent clause, right? And then this is just sort of extra information that could be deleted, and the prior part of the sentence would mean the same, still be complete. So this is non-restrictive. This is an interesting one in this sentence because we need a comma to set off this non-restrictive element. This is one that comes in the middle of the independent clause. And usually you don't set off prepositional phrases with commas because usually they're essential to the meaning of the sentence. But if you cut that out and you read the sentence that remained, it would be complete and the meaning would not be changed. This is sort of like a little aside, This is the one with the famous swagger, sort of just dropped in there. All right, and then the last one is actually the most common use of commas with a non-restrictive element, the comma which. That's by far the most common when you have an independent clause, right, that could stand alone, and then you do comma and which, and you kind of add some more information there. And so when you see that, you definitely want to do comma which. That's a good one to remember. All right, so we've taken a look here at using commas after introductory elements and commas to set off non-restrictive elements. In the next video, we'll look at our 2 final rules of punctuation.